What season of business am I currently in? That is one of the most important questions you can ask yourself as a creative studio owner. And not knowing the answer is actually one of the things that I see leading to a lot of frustration and burnout. I'm going to talk through exactly what those seasons are, and more importantly, how to know which one you are currently in. Once you know this, once you become aware of this, you might start looking at your business in a totally different way and even start changing how you make decisions. So let's start with welcome to another episode of the Creative Courage Podcast, where we explore how to build a creative studio that gives you more freedom, fulfillment, and financial security. I'm your host, Matt Essam, and in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the different seasons of business. Now, we all go through these seasons. They are an inevitable part of running a creative studio, building a creative agency. But a lot of us, firstly, aren't aware of the seasons, and more importantly, don't know which season we are in. I think I first heard about this concept from Tony Robbins at one of his business mastery events, and it really changed my perspective on my business because I realized a few things. Number one, I'd been through each season of business, and I had thought that these were good times and bad times, but they weren't really either. They were just a season. Like, winter isn't good or bad, it is just winter. If you know you're in winter, then you understand what to do in winter. You buy warmer clothes, you stock up on logs, you light fires, you know exactly what decisions to make and what things to do to deal with that season that you are currently in. And the reason it was very eye-opening for me was because it gave me hope. Oftentimes when I was in the season of winter, I felt like that was just my business. Like that was what my business was going to look like for the foreseeable future. And it felt really hard and it felt really difficult to get motivation. But if I had known that making the right decisions in winter would pull me into spring, that would have totally changed how I felt about my business. So the seasons I like to think about as just like the real seasons in nature. So we have spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that you typically experience in each one of these seasons, why it's important, and how to make decisions and what mistakes to look out for. So let's start with summer. Often people's favorite season, lots of sunshine, good vibes, people are happy, things are going well. And that's kind of a reflection of the stage in business. Typically in summer, you are busy with projects, you are focusing on delivering good quality for your clients. It feels like there's a lot going on, and it really feels like a season of growth. Everyone's pretty happy, things are going well, the team are enjoying the projects they're working on, and life feels pretty good. Then we kind of move into autumn or fall, as you call it in the States. And autumn is really a time of kind of collecting all of the benefits from summer. It's where you start to really see the tangible business rewards from summer. So you might look back and realize that you've had a good couple of months of really solid profit. You might decide that you want to pay yourself a little bit more. It's really about sort of reaping the rewards, or harvesting, which is obviously a kind of term and a theme that we use in the nature seasons, harvesting all of the things that have grown during summer. Then we move into winter, and winter can feel quite slow. Winter can often feel difficult. It's kind of a time for reflection. It's kind of a time for taking all of those things that you've harvested and making them work in your business, like using them as fuel in the fire to keep things going along and keep things ticking along. But this time can often feel quite slow. It can feel quite challenging. It can feel quite hard. And so that's what winter is really about. And then we move into spring. And spring is really where we think about planting the seeds for the rest of the year. Like, what are we going to grow? How are we going to change the business? How are we going to change our trajectory? So oftentimes we might start looking at our positioning in the market. We might look at our offer, our pricing. We're kind of really putting our business under the microscope and thinking, where do we want to go? Like, what is the trajectory that we're on right now? And what do we need to change? So it's really a time for reflection. So these are kind of like the typical seasons, and hopefully by me giving you that brief explanation, you might start to identify what season you're in. Now, there's a couple of things that are important to understand about seasons. They are cyclical, so they typically follow the same pattern. They very rarely jump around. And the other thing is that there are micro seasons and macro seasons. And what I mean by that is, like, you can have a month that feels like you go through spring, summer, autumn, winter all in that month. But you can also have a year where you go through that cycle slowly. Typically, what I've learned from some of my mentors who have got much, much bigger businesses than me, oftentimes they've got 5, 6, 7, 8 different businesses. The bigger the business, typically the slower the cycle. So when you're working, let's say, more with corporates or bigger businesses, they'll typically have a period of years where they might be in the same season. So kind of Apple springs to my mind. I'm not sure what the time period was, but I feel like when Steve Jobs was at the helm, it was very much about spring and summer. There was a lot of innovation. There was a lot of new ideas, new ways of thinking, and then bringing those products to market really kind of accelerated Apple into the forefront, the leaders of the market. And then I kind of felt like when Tim Cook took the reins, it was very much about profit. It was very much about harvesting all of that work that Steve Jobs had done. Not necessarily in a negative way, but I really feel like Tim Cook is the kind of operations guy, and Steve Jobs was very much the kind of brains thinking of new ideas. You know, he invented the iPhone and the iPod and, you know, all of these incredible products that didn't really exist before. And I think if we look at what Apple have brought out since Steve Jobs passed away, I wouldn't say there's a huge amount of innovation. And so it's kind of like the innovation came from the spring and then the summer, launching those products into market. And then the autumn was really harvesting all those things, doubling down on profit margins, you know, creating more of the same, but just with bigger profits, bringing a lot of the things that they do in-house. And that's really kind of what autumn. So it's probably quite likely that Apple is going to see a season of winter very soon. And that might be that, you know, competitors bring out better technology than them. I know, for example, that they're quite behind on like AI at the moment. So without getting too much down a rabbit hole about Apple and bigger companies, it's just important to understand that there are kind of micro seasons and there are macro seasons. And if you look at your life, you'll probably find that this is true in lots of different areas of your life. So I know for me personally, when it comes to health and fitness is quite a big value of mine. It's quite important. But right now, I'm kind of in an autumn moving into winter in terms of health and fitness. And so for the past, I'd say, decade, I've been very, very focused on going to the gym regularly, trying to eat well, being in good shape. And I think I got to a point where I trained too hard and I just was too hard on my body in terms of what I was putting in, and I was being too strict, and it kind of led to almost like a bit of burnout. And my body just said to me, I need a rest. And so at the moment, I'm actually exercising a lot less. I'm being a lot less strict with my diet. And as a result, I've got a lot more energy. So this idea of kind of listening to where are you in that season? Do you need to step on the accelerator? Do you need to pump the brakes? Do you need to recoup? Are you harvesting the work that you've done? It's really, really important, because if we make decisions as if we are in summer, but we're actually in winter, then we will keep ourselves in a negative cycle, or we will speed that cycle up. We will go from summer to winter very quickly, or vice versa. So it's really important that we make the right decisions for the right seasons in our business. And so I'll give you a few more sort of tangible examples and mistakes that I see people making. And typically, when I start working with creative studios, they're basically going from summer to winter very quickly. They're bypassing autumn. They might be there for a little while, but they are going really quickly from we're super busy, we're doing loads of cool projects, things are going really well, to, oh my God, where's the next project going to come from? Everything's dried up. To hustle, 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 quick, take whatever work we can get our hands on, to, oh God, we're really busy and we're growing again, right? And they just just go through that cycle really, really quickly. And so one of the things that keeps them in that cycle is that they don't understand where they are. So when they're in summer, they are not preparing for winter. They are not taking time to think about how they're going to reap the benefits of being in summer. And so one of the mistakes they make is they're busy working on projects, and so they take their foot off the gas in terms of new opportunities, right? So it's like they're dancing around, they're having fun, they're on holiday, they're like, wow, we're really busy, everything's going really well. And then things start to slow down. And first of all, they don't kind of take stock. So they don't bank some cash. They just go, well, we've got these projects, so let's hire some more people. And so then, their outgoings match their incoming and their profit margins stay low. So when it comes to fall, they don't really have anything to harvest. Whereas one of the best strategies is when things are going really well, instead of just keep growing and hiring more people, is actually limiting your capacity and continuing to do business development and continuing to build relationships so that you have more people interested in working with you than you have the capacity to deliver on. So it's limiting your capacity. Hey, we've got a team of 6 people. Great. We're not just going to hire more people to deal with this capacity. We're going to sign this work. But when we sign a new client, instead of saying, yeah, you can start straight away, we're going to say, you can start in 3 months when this next project is likely to end, like it's coming to an end. And so we're actually stacking those projects on top of each other, and we have a pipeline of work so that when it starts coming into autumn, we are stockpiling, we're creating a cash buffer, we are maybe paying ourselves a bit more, we're giving some of our team a bit of a bonus. Things are good. And so we're coming into autumn, and then winter comes, we've got this pipeline of projects. We know things might be a bit harder, but we know that there are these projects that are in the pipeline, and we're going to nurture these relationships, and things are maybe going to slow down a little bit, but this is our time to really sort of consolidate everything and look at what's going on. So that's a typical mistake I see in summer. In autumn, again, just not really taking time to celebrate and say, what have we achieved? This is great. It's like back into the hustle. Where's the next project coming from? What are we doing? And so one of the things that I get my clients to do, even just on a weekly basis, is celebrate your wins. What has been going well? What could you celebrate in your business and your life right now? And this is important for 2 things. Number one, we get more of what we focus on. So if we're focused on all the things that are going well, we're going to naturally attract more of that. Number 2, often we use a strategy to get a certain outcome, and we don't stop to really acknowledge how that strategy worked or how we can replicate it. So next time we want to move into summer, we just deploy this strategy again. Giving you a tangible example, you might have a contact that introduces you to a lot of people. So what I typically find with a lot of creative studios that I'm coaching is that there will be like 1 or 2 people in their network that give them most of the referrals. And so they're just sort of leaving that to grow organically rather than thinking, okay, how could we make this person who's giving us a lot of referrals an official partner? How could we build a strategy around this? How could we reward this person so that they keep sending us work and they keep introducing us to people consistently? How could we make this person like a brand ambassador? Rather than doing that, they're just going, oh, isn't it great that Tommy keeps introducing us to everyone? This is fantastic. Let's be nice to him, right? So looking at how they're creating that result and then taking that so that that is in their tool set and in their strategic wheelhouse so they can deploy that strategy whenever they need to. So that's a kind of another mistake in the autumn space, is like not really taking time to consolidate, to celebrate, to actually look back. What have we achieved? Why did this go well? What do we want to do more of again? And kind of taking that time. The other thing about summer is, and I see this a lot from a coaching perspective, right? Because people tell me, this is classic. I get inquiries from people who are like, oh, I really need some help because all my projects have dried up right now. And then you say, cool, we can help you. And, this is what it's going to look like. Oh, well, I don't really have much budget to invest right now. So they're stuck in this cycle of like, they need help, but they don't want to invest because they're worried that winter's going to last forever. And then on the flip side, they're in summer and they're like, oh no, we don't need any help right now. We're busy and we're all good, just ticking along. We've got loads of projects. We'll let you know, like, when we need help. And oftentimes that's the best time to get help, when you're super busy. So I see that from a coaching perspective, but also like I've saw that in my own agency around marketing and things. I always used to think, well, we're really busy. So why do we need to market? Why do we need to go out and do business development? Why do we need to bring on that person or spend that money on ads or whatever it is? Like, we're already busy. But that is often the best time to do it because you're preparing yourself for fall and you're preparing yourself for winter. In fall, I've talked about not taking enough time to celebrate. In winter, now these are some of the really sort of classic mistakes that I see people making in winter. Number one is panicking. They go, oh my God, there are no projects in the pipeline. What do we do? Well, we just say yes to anything that comes along. And we'll take on this project, even though we're not really excited about it, even though it's probably below our minimum project rate. We're just going to take it on anyway. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make in winter is kind of panicking and just saying yes to any kind of work. And the reason it's a big mistake is because it takes you out of alignment with the business that you're actually trying to build. So if you imagine you're on a trajectory to this kind of business with these kind of clients, generating this kind of revenue, this size team, this is what you want. And there are certain projects and clients that are going to get you there. And every time you say yes to something that is not in alignment with that, it takes you off course. And what happens is it takes people off course and then they have to work really hard just to get back to where they were before. And I see this so often. Like I'll speak to agencies where they say, well, we did 7 figures last year, but this year we're really struggling. We're only doing 500,000 or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, what did you do differently? Oh, well, a few projects dried up, or it was summer, things were great, and we took our foot off the gas when it came to business development. And then all of a sudden we had no projects and we panicked in the team and we had people to pay. And so we just took this project and that project. And now everyone's stressed and no one's really enjoying working here. And these clients are a pain in the ass. And I just felt like I had to say yes to anything, right? So we really panic. And we've got no strategy around how we actually find more of the kind of clients that we want. So that's number one is panicking. Number two is cutting everything, right? Winter is like, oh God, winter's coming. Let's get rid of everything and let's cut expenses, cut costs, let go of people if we have to. And we basically get rid of everything. And then we have to use a lot of energy to get that stuff back rather than holding on to things, right, that we've built and things that we've celebrated, things that we've harvested in autumn, and thinking about how we make them last longer. How do we spread it out? Rather than, oh God, winter's coming, let's throw all the logs on the fire to keep warm, which is kind of the equivalent of just like getting rid of all expenses. We think about, okay, how do we make these logs last longer? Or are logs the best fuel? Do we need to look at an alternative fuel source? And maybe if we've got no logs at all, who out there has got logs that we could go and borrow some logs from and pay them back next time when we don't make this mistake? Or who out there has got some logs that we could use some of our skills and our things that we have to offer in exchange for some of that fuel? So people panic, they get into scarcity mode, and they make bad decisions, which mean that they stay in winter longer, and it takes them way more time to get back to spring and summer. What about spring? What mistakes do people make in spring? Well, they just don't spend enough time there, right? So spring is about really thinking about what seeds do we want to plant? Like, where do we want to go? What is our strategy going to be? Looking at our marketing and positioning. People just don't spend enough time there. They're so desperate to get out of winter that as soon as a project comes on, they're just 100% focused on that project, and they don't take any time for their business. They don't take time to think about, well, is this the kind of project that we really want to be doing? And how do we position ourselves long-term so that we attract these kind of clients? And so, for example, some of the work that we do with our clients around positioning and around, differentiation in the market, these things take time and they take energy and they take introspection and they take research. And people just don't want to do it because there's not always an immediate ROI on some of those things. The ROI on that comes when your new positioning attracts a new kind of client and then you win that client, right? And then you move into summer. But if you don't take the time to figure out what that strategy is or what that positioning is, what happens is you just take on wrong fit clients again, and you just kind of keep in this cycle. You keep stuck in winter for far too long. And then if you do win a project that's good, you go straight through and you kind of breeze through spring straight into summer. So actually taking time and creating time in your business to step back and essentially treat yourself like a client. Give your business the priority that you give your clients. Give your business the time and the energy that you give your clients in order to actually move you through those seasons a lot more smoothly. So hopefully that got you thinking, and hopefully that got you really reflecting on A, firstly, where are you right now? What season are you in? And B, what decisions are you making in that season that might be keeping you stuck in that season rather than helping you to move through them? And the reason I love this awareness is because, so for me right now, I'm kind of in a season of between, like, kind of where I am with my health. I often find that the seasons kind of overlap into different areas of life, and they often sort of come together. And so in my business, I'm very much in a season of fall and winter, and it's a very intentional place. And again, like I said, it's not a bad place to be. So I've gone from kind of having this like big community of people, having coaches that are working for me, like a team of people, to really consolidating everything down to a very small team, going back to doing a lot of one-to-one stuff, because I'm really trying to work out in the coaching space and in the consulting space, like, where are things heading and what tools are currently available in terms of AI and CRMs and things that could make our clients' lives so much easier. So what I'm doing in winter is I'm really, really kind of consolidating everything, but I'm also working with a very small, tight-knit group of creative studios and agencies who I know I can really help, and I'm being quite hands-on with them, and I'm sort of getting involved in their business. I've really got an ear to the ground. I kind of know what's going on in each one of their businesses. I'm tracking lots of things in their business. We're trying new things, and I'm working very closely with them, because I know once I can figure that out, once I can harness a lot of these tools and these strategies and build something that consistently helps these kind of people in terms of like a tool set and a strategy and how we support them and how we track things. Once I've really got my hands in their business, I know I can replicate that. So then I can go back to kind of growing and building that community and do it in a way where I'm like, I know that when people come and work with us on a sort of one to many or in a group situation, which is less hands-on, we're going to get amazing results for them. And so that's something that I'm doing consciously. I'm rewriting my books. I'm doing like a revised edition of my book. I'm thinking, and then I know next year I'm going to start thinking about my positioning in the market. I'm really thinking about this concept of courage and creative courage and what that looks like as a brand. The reason I'm telling you this is because it's so important to be aware of where you're at. If I panicked and I was like, oh, everything feels like it's going a bit slow, and I want to grow and build this massive community, I'll make the mistake of kind of going into spring and then trying to go into summer too quickly, where I haven't maybe joined all the dots or figured out like what is the best software for our clients to use, and how are we using AI in their business to help them grow, and like what is the market doing. I haven't figured that stuff out, right? Because I haven't spent enough time in winter really like getting into the weeds and really being okay with the fact that there's probably not going to be any growth, because I'm maxed out on my one-to-one clients. Like I can take on maybe one or two clients in the next kind of 4 to 6 months, right? So that's okay. Whereas if I was like, oh God, I'm not growing, and there's all these other people out there building these massive businesses and they're constantly growing, and I started thinking in that way and making decisions in that way, I would rush and I'd probably onboard a bunch of new clients and build this community. But I would go back to winter very quickly, because those people would say, oh, this isn't what I expected, or maybe we wouldn't get results for everybody. And we just create a lot more work for the team, and everything would feel a little bit chaotic, and maybe I'd burn out my team, maybe I'd burn myself out, and then we'd come back to winter very, very quickly, right? So it's so important to understand where you are, and I'm just okay with the fact that I'm not going to add an extra 30, 40 grand a month in the next few months to my bottom line, because I'm focused on getting my clients results. And like, that's all I care about right now. I'm building the systems to support them getting those results consistently, creating amazing case studies, and basically making everyone win, so that my brand reputation in the market sustains itself and people have lots of good things to say about working with me and going through this process. And I'm okay to sacrifice summer temporarily to be in winter to figure that stuff out, to then be in spring to look at how I position that to the market and use all of the stuff we've done in winter to really position that well, so that is evidence-based stuff, not just marketing hyperbole. And I'm actually like, hey, look what we've done in winter. We've been digging the ditches. We've been really like battening down the hatches. We've been, working really hard with these clients to figure out the systems and the processes and the things that are helping them win. Now we're going to bring that to market. We're going to position it. And then we're going to have summer where people are going to come and join. But more importantly, those people are going to win and they're going to shout about us. And so that's going to mean that as we come into fall, there's lots of rewards to reap, both for our clients, for our team, for me personally. And so I know that like I'm going to stay in summer for a much longer period, and I'm going to have much more to harvest in fall if I do the work now in winter to make sure that we have amazing clients that are getting amazing results. I hope you found this podcast episode helpful. Let me know what you think. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. I get a few messages a week just saying, hey, I've been listening to your podcast. I really enjoy this. I love this episode or that episode. So that's really, really valuable for me to know kind of what topics are resonating, what things you guys are finding helpful and interesting. So yeah, if you enjoyed today's episode, as always, my request is hit the subscribe button if you aren't subscribed already. We do also we put this on YouTube as well as a video. It's also on all of the major podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, all of those great places. Connect with me on LinkedIn, come and say hi. And more importantly, share this with someone, right? Somebody that you think might find this episode valuable, just send it to them and say, hey, I've been listening to this really great podcast called Creative Courage with Matt Essam, and I think you'd enjoy it. And that's how we can spread the message about these important topics that I don't think are getting talked about enough. And we can support people to grow creative businesses that they're really proud of, that give them a sense of purpose and fulfillment, and also the freedom to pick and choose who they want to work with, and the financial security to actually do their most creative and their life's best work. Thanks for listening. This is the Creative Courage Podcast, and I'll see you next week.